After all, we're all about sunshine here. Sunshine in the soul, as the old hymn goes. Dr. Ralph May is with us this morning as we visit with him on a very, very sensitive topic. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. This is a Suicide Prevention Month,
Right.
and the Walk for a Wonderful Life is happening this weekend. Obviously, suicide prevention is tantamount for somebody in your profession.
Absolutely.
But for all of us, it is a concern, and it seems like if I were to extrapolate from what you talked about earlier this week when you were with us and how Indiana County seems to have done more than just weather the pandemic in terms of its suicide rate, that we're doing a little bit better than other areas, but obviously still a big concern.
Indiana County's rate is a little lower than the national rate right now, which is good. I think one of the things that I don't want to do is get ahead of ourselves. In suicide prevention, we have to remember that at any given point in time, there are tens of thousands of people who are considering suicide in the United States. And at any given point in time, that decision can tilt one way or the other. It can tilt toward death or toward life. And so what we have to do is be aware of the people that are on the cusp. They need to be able to be reached. They need to be able to be given a message of hope. They need to be able to be told that you can reach out, you can receive help, and people will understand what's going on. The Walk for a Wonderful Life, and I can't believe, Todd, this is our 9th year for the Walk for a Wonderful Life. And we started the Walk for a Wonderful Life in order to raise community awareness about suicide, in order to make sure that people recognize suicide as a healthcare problem that it is. Indiana County, since Coroner Overman has been in, we've been tracking every suicide that happens in this county, and it varies from 7 to 18 a year in Indiana County. That it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that each one of these individuals did not have to die because the illness is an illness of choice. It's an illness where the person becomes desperate, they become hopeless, and they make the choice to die, and they become isolated in their thinking, and they forget that they are part of a community, they are part of people who will reach out to them and care about them. And so that forgetting that they're part of the community, the forgetting that their life does matter, even though they feel like it doesn't, is the one thing we can make an impact on if we reach enough people.
One of the big things about the Walk for a Wonderful Life and about the aftermath of suicide is the people left behind.
Right.
Walk for a Wonderful Life specifically has information and support for those folks.
Correct. And a lot of the people who walk actually are families and friends of people who've died by suicide. And so the remembrance of those individuals' lives is very important because we do not want suicide to define the person's life. Mm-hmm. The suicide is an illness that took the person, but we do not want that illness to define their meaning of their life. And families will walk and friends will walk in remembrance of individuals who have died by suicide and raising public awareness that they don't have to. And families go through tremendous pain. Tremendous guilt, tremendous remorse, like we should have seen something, we should have done something. And it's very difficult because a lot of people who are in the suicidal thought process do not share. Some people do, but sometimes it's so sideways that people don't recognize it. Yeah. And other times they just don't. And so we have to be able to recognize that families pay a terrible price. One of the things that I do with Coroner Overman is called psychological autopsy, where we go back and we meet with family members, we meet with friends, and we meet to kind of piece things together in the person's life and figure out what was going on. Was it medical issues, psychological issues, substance abuse? And talking to the families, you recognize there's so much pain. There's so much pain. And so when I talk to people who are struggling with suicidal ideation, I try to counsel them to remember that even though they feel like they're on an island and nobody cares, that's not true. That's part of the illness. That's part of the depression that colors the thinking. Everyone is connected to everyone else, and when you die by suicide, you create shock waves, and those shock waves do other damage that is unintended by you, and that's what we have to get out to people as well.
Is it difficult to get families to open up about that?
It's challenging for them because oftentimes there's a lot of stigma and embarrassment still in our society about suicide. There's still a lot of misinformation about suicide that's out there. That's why we have to be very careful when somebody dies by suicide, because there are a lot of judgmental people that blame, the blame process goes out, and that causes people to shut down and not want to talk about. They're embarrassed, they're uncomfortable, they're ashamed, and that shame and embarrassment is a significant barrier to getting people to feel like they can open up and get the help they need. We do what's called postvention, meeting with families, meeting with businesses, meeting with community members to help people understand what happened, to people understand the mechanics of suicide, and that the blame is utterly worthless in this area.
I want to talk about what the walk is all about in a couple of moments, but I do want to bring this up because I think there is a very distinct difference between the suicide of somebody who is up in years and somebody who's
Right.
very young.
Right.
And those families of the very young have a particularly difficult struggle, don't they?
They do, because and this is very typical, that when someone dies young, there's this thought of, well, their lives were cut short, that we are deprived of their seeing them grow and develop and learn, and so that pain of losing someone who's young really reverberates often in the families and in the community, and some of the more powerful and difficult postventions have been with the deaths of young people to suicide. And one of the terrible things about suicide in general, but particularly with young people, is that when a young person dies by suicide, it tends to affect their peer group, their cohort, their group of friends, and it can increase the suicide rate in those groups because oftentimes some of those friends are also in that gray zone, that teetering zone of depression and hopelessness. So we really very much need to provide support to prevent suicide at every age range, but particularly education in families of the young and young people in general.
All right, let's talk about the Walk for a Wonderful Life. It is coming up this weekend. Give us the whens and wheres and how people can be involved.
Mack Park, the registration is at 1 o'clock. The walk begins at 2 at the fairgrounds. And basically, we're going to have parking on the fairgrounds this year. So you just come on into the fairgrounds and park.
That's on Sunday.
That's on Sunday. I'm sorry. Sunday is this Sunday is the Walk for a Wonderful Life. Thanks for reminding me. The issue is right now is, you can register on site. You can go to the Eventbrite site at our website, which is stf32 at indianacountypa.gov. And do registration via the website, or you can just show up around 1 o'clock at the fairgrounds, and we will register you then. Basically it is an opportunity to hear some speakers about suicide, some survivors, and then an opportunity to walk in memory of those who have died, or just to educate the public about suicide.
Yeah. Resources are such a vital part of this whole dynamic of suicide and prevention of suicide and recovery of those who survive the suicide of one of their loved ones. And I know that that's a big component of the Walk for a Wonderful Life.
It is recovery for people to make sure that they know they're connected to one another, that there is hope, and also to the concept of raising public awareness. Now, at the walk, there will be tables set up of local agencies, helping agencies, so that people can gather information from the different providers, the Guidance Center, the Open Door, to learn more about what resources are available in Indiana County for the treatment of addiction, depression, mental health disorders, and suicide. So that's a place where people can gather information as well. So not only to kind of help themselves, but also for helping each other.
Yeah. And it's a really, really big aspect of the Walk for a Wonderful Life. I want to emphasize that when we talk about the Walk for a Wonderful Life, it's not for people, or it's not just for people who have been affected by suicide in their lives, although probably everybody has, just in the suicide of someone they know. But there is an opportunity for people whose lives have not been touched directly by suicide to step into the arena, if you will, and to become people who can be real supporters.
And that's what we want. We want people who are just very interested in suicide prevention and have a passion for raising public awareness to get involved in suicide prevention. One of the things that's very difficult is suicide. It's estimated that 1 in 7 Americans will have been touched by suicide in some manner, a friend, a family member, 1 in 7. So this is not a rare occurrence in terms of the ripple effect it sends out into the world and into the community and into people. So I think it's very important for us to, as a community, as a world, to recognize suicide as the health problem that it is, and to get people involved in prevention and recognizing awareness. One of the things the Suicide Task Force does is we train people in QPR, question, persuade, refer. It's like CPR, right, for training people to save lives. QPR is designed to help the general public, the layperson, recognize suicide risk, engage the person in a conversation, and know how to get them help. It's free from the Suicide Task Force. We train everywhere. We train schools, we train communities, we train churches. It takes about an hour and a half, and it helps people recognize the warning signs and do something.
He's Dr. Ralph May joining us. Once again, the Suicide Task Force Walk for a Wonderful Life is going to be happening on Sunday afternoon at Mack Park. A couple of moments left. want to reach out to that person who might be thinking about suicide right now,
right now.
because that person could be listening to us at this moment, and this will be the one chance we have to reach out to that person. What do we need to say?
Call 877-333-2470. In Indiana County, that answers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a therapist. You can talk anonymously. You don't have to give your name or any identifying information. We will help you. We will talk to you. We will get you the help that you need to get through this crisis.
Absolutely. All right. Once again, Sunday afternoon, beginning at what time?
Registration at 1. The walk begins at 2.
And the website is STF, stands for Suicide
Task Force 32 at indianacountypa.gov.
STF32 at indianacountypa.gov. Dr. Ralph May, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
We appreciate that so very, very much. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.